that's a big part of watching sports. Yani, when you're sitting watching the game from afar, you're like, you know exactly what's wrong. But the players in the middle of the game, they're just yelling at you to shut up and mind your business as they try to make things work. But the game doesn't improve unless the people on the outside, throughout time, inform what's happening on the inside. Which is why, for example, every sport evolves over time. Like, have you ever watched? I used to do this as a silly. I don't do it anymore. But I used to buy, back in the days of DVDs and CDs and stuff. I used to buy like the World Cup of 1972 or something. You just buy the whole collection and just sit there and watch the games, just out of interest of kind of see. And you can't do that like anymore. Like it's very hard. You can't watch a full game that was played before the 1990s. Like it's impossible. You lose your mind. Like it's so bad. Everything is so bad, like the refereeing is bad, the coaching is bad, the players are not in shape, they don't have any tactics, everything is wrong. The whole thing is just nausea-inducing. It's impossible to watch the game. Even though some of the players who played back then were so amazing in terms of their personal skills, it's just so hard. Why? Because the game improves. Why is it improved? Because a lot of informing is happening from people who are watching from outside and then bringing the knowledge that they're seeking. So when we talk about Islam, it's important that you don't lose the bird's view. Like that you don't lose what Islam is about from looking from the outside. Because if you get caught up with what's happening on the inside all the time, you completely lose the compass of what Islam is about, which is what most people's problem is. Are we good to start? Am I good to some people? Because I'm saying, I don't want to repeat all this stuff again. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa alihi sahbihi wa wala. All right, so today, inshallah, we'll go through the questions that I posed yesterday, the framework that Haywood put in his introduction. And I'll offer the answers that I think work to the best of my ability, and you can compare them with kind of how you saw things. And the majority of the answers that actually I looked at were pretty well thought through and pretty good, and they reflect, inshallah, a mature understanding of what Islam is about. And so some misconceptions there that I'll try and address as we go throughout this through this course. But again, what I was trying to say before. It's important to be able to appreciate Islam for what it is from an outsider's view, from the bird's view. Like if you don't do that, then you get caught up with internal conflict and petty issues, and you get lost in them. You get lost in the differences of opinion. You get lost in the detailed aspects of practice that you lose sight of what Islam actually is from on the larger scheme of things. What is it actually here to do? Why was it even a thought? Where did it come from, and what was it trying to achieve? And that's really the beauty of Islam. The beauty of it is answering these questions and not losing touch with what they are. To me, the mature Muslim is the one who has that understanding, that bird's view understanding of what Islam is, sees it from afar, sees it for what it, and also engages in the daily practices and cares about the details and asks how exactly do I perform wudu, how many times, and what and tartib is important, and muwala, and how much time can you leave between the movement and the other, asking the detailed questions about practice, but not losing sight of what the bigger picture actually is. Here today, or in this course, the focus is on the bigger picture. What is the bigger picture? Which is what philosophy talks about. Like it tries to explain the bigger picture of things. The ideas that are fueling the actual movement of this machine. Ideologies are well-oiled machines that if you want to understand, you have to take the cover off and take a look at the dynamics of the different instruments inside and how they are interacting with one another. If you just if you focus only on one screw or one bolt or one piece, then you lose sight sometimes of the bigger picture. True scholars and good Muslims are those who focus on one piece, like one bolt or one screw or one piece of the engine, but still appreciate the engine itself, understand how it actually functions and why it functions and what it requires to function. We lose that so often that we end up in situations where we fragment and we divide and we fight and we disagree and we deviate from the purposes because we're so focused on such internal small issues that we think that they are somehow bigger than they are. We start feeling that they're bigger than they are. We start feeling that simple issues are actually bigger than what they actually are, and then we lose sight of things, and we make all these mistakes, and we divide. And the point of this series is try to help all of us to kind of see things appropriately. So without further ado, I can't delay anymore because we're going to. So what I'm going to do two things. I'm going to go through the questions that I asked yesterday and offer my humble answers. And these are taken from, they're not my personal answers. These are taken from the works of Imam Ghazali and Tahafut al-Falasifa, and what Ibn Rushd answered him back, and what Ibn Taymiyyah says in his work. And it's the collective work of what most scholars accept, and it's what I was taught, even in academia and outside of academia. And it's just the sum of what I believe to be the truth. If this were an academic course, and maybe I'll make it an academic course at some point, then I would actually go through the quotes, the aqwal, exactly what they all said and where they differed, and maybe how they complemented one another in their understandings of things. And then when I'm done, I'm going to introduce how traditional Islamic scholars asked the questions. Like, what were the questions that our scholars asked when they tried to explain Islam on a higher level? Because that's what philosophy is, right? On a higher level. Maybe they didn't use the word falsafa, they didn't. But you have to understand that Muslims, maybe since right after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, started immediately going into debate with other faiths, almost immediately. Like, he passed away from here, alayhi salatu wasalam, and that's it. The debates began, and they peaked. In the Abbasi period, they absolutely peaked. There was a lot of going on. And the Muslims had to present Islam to the world as a solution to a problem, as a way of life that was better than the one that they had. So they had to present Islam that way. It wasn't even this wasn't a choice that they made. They had to do this, or else Islam was going to lose the battle. The Islam ideologically was going to lose, because now you have friction with Christians and Persians and Jews and Majus, and you're entering into parts of the world where there were ways of thought like Confucianism and Buddhism, ideas that had been there longer than Islam had been, and presented solutions to problems, and presented in a way of how to assume reality. It talked about all these things. So now Islam had to actually go head to head against these ideas. It wasn't just enough to ta'al, here's how you pray. We start Siyam right at Fajr, and then we fight about the Hilal first, and then we do the... No, it was not that. It was why is this a better way of life? Like, why is this way of life better than the way of life that you have? And if they didn't have proper answers, then this was not going to work out. Obviously, it was not going to succeed. So they came up with certain questions and certain answers. Not exactly what I presented, but something similar, close enough that I think you'll be impressed with the similarity. To think that 1,400 years ago, we had scholars and scientists who sat down and actually posed the right questions about how to answer, how to explain a faith, and how to talk about a way of life, an ideology, which is what Islam is in essence. So let's go ahead and go. So the first question: what problem does Islam believe it is solving? And this was the most interesting of the questions in terms of the answers. A lot of variety here in the answers. This is how I see it. It is what is actually here to solve is the misalignment between the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the universe, and the way people are living. The universe has a creator. He put a certain way of living. He has guidance of how to live life, and there's misalignment with how people are living. Again, the word here of importance is the word guidance. The word of important, the problem is solving, is that people are living, they're lacking guidance. The mind can go very far in helping you figuring out things, but the mind itself lacks, it needs guidance in order for it to function. It can't provide something that it's not offered. The mind is not designed to come up with guidance. Guidance, that's a different thing. That requires an external force. So really the problem that is here to solve, because obviously it's a huge question. Islam is solving every problem. That's how we understand Islam. It's solving every problem. You name it, and it'll solve it, right? That's how we see it, and that is true. That's true. What problem are you talking about? Social, financial? What do you want? Islam will come and solve it. And there's a lot of problems. But if you want to really word it appropriately, you want a simple answer, is that the creator of the universe has divine guidance, and there's a misalignment with how people are living. And this misalignment that we have is causing a lot of the injustice, it's causing the aimlessness, it's causing the fragmentation, it's causing moral confusion, it's causing all these problems, because humans, we possess a natural fitra, a natural moral orientation in life, but it's not enough. I mean, we wake up into the world and we kind of know what's right and what's wrong, and we know that honesty is better than lying, and respecting people's wealth is better than stealing. We have an idea, but it's not enough for us to generate our own way of our own guidance in life. And then you have the majority of the world. You have most people. The Prophet ﷺ walked into a world where, yes, the problems were many. There was shirk, there was zina, there was fahsha, there was sariqa, there was lack of human rights, there was aimlessness, there was brutality, there was no rahmah. The problems were many. So if he was going to come and talk about each one individually, or just talk about one of them, his da'wah would have been limited to whatever it is he talked about initially. But he didn't, alayhi salatu wasalam. That's why he came and talked about hidayah, which is why we started out with ihdina. We are asking for hidayah. We need to be guided. There's too many options. Too many options. If I took you to a place, a store somewhere, and hey, want to buy any appliance, and I showed you 50 appliances, you're going to stand there like, all prices are the same. Yeah. All prices are the same. And you just stand there, and you just look around, you're like, anyone, what are you looking for? You're looking for guidance. You want someone to come and tell you, okay, here's what matters in this appliance. Here's what you want. Here's what you care for. Here's why this is different. You want someone to offer you some degree of guidance of what to do. And even after they explain everything, you're still asking, what do you recommend? What do you recommend? That's what, but physicians, that's what they do. You sit there and you explain everything to the patient. After you're done, okay, here are the options, 1, 2, 3. And then the question the patient is like, what do you recommend? Because they look for guidance. It's normal. It's a normal human reflex to want guidance from someone who knows more than you or has more than you. So the collective human brain, like all of us together, how does that function? It needs guidance. And there's a misalignment between how human life is and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided them to do. And the Prophet ﷺ brought it all back together. Here's what he's guiding to do, and here's how we're going to live according to that guidance. And that will fix automatically all the problems, because the alignment will bring it together. There's a misalignment. Prophetic revelation, meaning what the Prophet ﷺ brought, it restores alignment between humanity, it brings humanity, the moral code that we live by, and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Ultimately, that is what Islam came to, the problem it came to solve. So what picture of reality does Islam assume? Again, it's a very specific answer here. It's a monotheistic worldview centered on tawheed. This is the religion aspect. Out of the questions that we put, this is the question that's talking about religion, as we understand it in the modern context. In the modern context, when you say religion, then it's talking about the metaphysics. Like, how do you explain existence? How do you explain the universe? Where did the universe come from, and where is it going, and what laws govern it, if any? That's what religion is, right? For us, Islam is much more than that. It's an ideology. It's not just a religion. It doesn't just answer that question. It answers all the questions. But here's the question of faith. So for us, it's a worldview of monotheism, that there's tawheed, there's one creator. The universe, because of that, because there's one, is purposeful, it's meaningful, it's ordered. Nature in the Quran is described as ayat. Everything about nature is ayat. I've been preaching this for years. Everything, from the sun to the moon to the rivers to the wind and the mountains and the day and the night, everything that is to us maxims of the universe, of nature, these are just ayat. These are signs that point you towards divine wisdom, towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's all it is. In reality, it includes the physical world, the moral order, and the unseen. I mean, for Islam, the reality is not just what you deal with. It's the morality behind it, and that which you do not have access to. There's more to life than just what you're seeing. And because of that, for us, the definition of reality goes beyond just pointing out one word. It is rooted in monotheism, in a worldview that centers on tawheed, that there is one creator. And that one creator put purpose and put order, and he put meaningfulness in everything that's going to happen. Even if you decide to say, even if you observe randomness, it's purposeful randomness. It's purposeful randomness. Sometimes you will take a bunch of balls small balls in a container, and you want to send them in a certain way, so you'll shake it. You'll shake it to get them out. It's randomness. Like, you don't know which one's going to come flying out, but it's purposeful randomness because you know where they're going to go. And you know ultimately where they're going to land. So when you talk about randomness, there's purposeful randomness, and there is completely non-purposeful randomness, where things are just happening with no goal at all. And no, if you observe randomness in the universe, it's still purposeful. Meaning, when the mutations, for example, are happening within creation, they're purposeful. Meaning, at the end, the mutation that will allow the creation to suit the world that is living in the environment is the one that will prevail, and everything else will die off. So this is you can call this randomness, but it's purposeful randomness. Meaning, there's still purpose behind it. It's still guided towards a goal. It's trying to achieve something at the end, which is why we're here, or else we wouldn't be here. It's impossible for the randomness of mutations to bring us forward as a species if it wasn't purposeful in nature, if it wasn't designed to make sure this is going to be the case. You don't take every single drop of water and put it for the tree. You just turn the river in that direction. You don't know which drop is going to give which tree, but you know that the water is going to make it to all the... It may be random, but it's purposeful. It will get there. And all of life is like that. And it doesn't mean that it's random at all. It just means randomness is the method, is the mechanism that will achieve the purpose. And I know this may be a little bit complicated, but that is how most of this universe functions. You may observe it, so it seems a lot of random things, but this randomness is going towards a purpose at the end. Or else you wouldn't have the outcomes that you had. You would have, when you think about it, you wouldn't have mature creatures that function in certain ways, that have ways to adapt to their environment, and that work within an ecosystem. Full randomness would not allow for an ecosystem that was balanced to exist to begin with. Like that whole concept would not even be here. But because there's a purposefulness to it, it does. So how do you answer all that? How do we explain all that in Islam? Because we're not here to say that everything is going exactly as how we would consider a successful plan. Because we have the ways of understanding successful plans. We base it on efficiency and efficacy and certain. That the world may not work that way, but it is purposeful. So the answer is just, there is monotheism. At the core of it, there's Tawheed. Tawheed is how we understand the world. Without Tawheed, we can't understand the world. We have no way to understand it. There's no explanation to anything. How do you explain the universe in its vastness? How do you explain the existence of life? How do you explain that life is so versatile and then we exist within it because we kind of stand out when it comes to life and what we're capable of doing, what we've been doing and what we'll continue to do. We have the capacity to destroy everything. Every other extinction that happened on this planet happened from an external source of some sort. Either it got too cold or too hot, or a meteor hit and burned everything. But no, the world will end when we decide to bomb it to smithereens. We have the ability to do this. This is very specific to our experience. So how do you explain all of that? There is no way to explain it with the intricacies of this existence, aside saying there's Wahid, there is one who put it all in motion. He has meaning to it, he made it purposeful, and he put order in it. We may not understand the depth or the detail of each of those things. I may not know exactly what meaning exists in everything that occurs to me, but I know there's meaning. I may not know the purpose of every single thing, but I know there is one. And I may not be able to understand how the order actually functions, but I know there's there. And that's very unique. This is one of the most unique pieces to our deen. A lot of the questions and answers that I'm going to offer, that I'm going to go through, actually a lot of other ideologies kind of agree with us. Like, yeah, the same thing. That's what we want to. Mechanism, yeah, we agree with that as well. But this answer, this is very specific. Specific to you. Because you're not interested in the mechanics of how it works. So you're not going to answer, oh, it's fully governed. And it's governed through human logic. No, it isn't. It's not governed through human logic. It's governed through divine logic. We don't understand that logic. We don't understand that at all, so we can't even explain it, and we're going to try to begin with. Oh, it's completely random. Nope, we don't see that to be the case at all. It's not what's happening either. Or we come is the universe wanting to be conscious? That doesn't explain anything. That just adds more questions to the problem. Well, who is the universe, and what is the universe? Is it a functional being? Is it a conscious being itself? Are we supposed to talk to it? What? It just makes more questions, and it adds to the confusion. So your understanding of Tawheed actually is the answer to this question. How do you understand reality? Through La ilaha illallah. Because La ilaha illallah, I'm able to make sense of reality. Make sense of one who put it all in motion, gave it meaning, gave it purpose, gave it order, and everything that happens exists under those three things. And I do too. And I may not like many of the answers, but they're there. Meaning you may not like the meaning. You may not like it. There's difficulty and pain. Oh, I don't like that. It's meaningful, but I don't like that. You don't have to. It still has meaning. Your purpose is to serve and to... I don't like that purpose. Fine, don't like it, but that's still the purpose. You don't have to enjoy it. You just have to be able to acknowledge that it exists. And that's how you understand the world. Number 3. What is the source of knowledge and authority in Islam? And this is the epistemology, and we'll talk about this, inshallah, in its own lecture on the epistemology of Islam for sure. But Islam recognizes multiple sources of knowledge. Number one, obviously, is revelation, is divine guidance coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two is aql. And I'll talk about in that lecture, inshallah, some of the debates and arguments that exist within Islam and how to deal with these things. Muslims have fought over hundreds of years of how to rank these two and how to make them buddies and work together and how it's always been a problem. But everyone agrees that it is a source of knowledge. And imagine if it wasn't, if aql had, then how are you going to understand revelation to begin with if you don't have aql? So aql is a source of knowledge. The methods of logic and deductive reasoning. And number three is the senses. The senses that allow you to observe the universe, what you see, what you hear, and what you feel. This matters. You can't be told that you didn't have an experience. You can't be told you didn't feel a certain way. That's insane. You say, well, aqlan, it doesn't make sense that you felt that. This is like Marriage 101 course. I'm going to give you a Marriage 101 piece of advice. You're going to say, it doesn't make sense that you feel that. Yeah, I know it doesn't make sense, but she felt it. But it makes no sense. Aqlan, it doesn't make any sense. Shar'an, it doesn't make any sense. I understand, but there's one third piece that you're missing here when it comes to the sources of knowledge, which is the senses. That's how she felt. And you run into that too as well, by the way, as a man. You're just really good at suppressing it into large bottles and putting it inside yourself so it turns into either an early heart attack or cancer or no hair on the head or white hair or something. You just learn to suppress things over a very long period of time. But it doesn't mean that you don't have it. So there are three sources of knowledge. I'm not talking about ranking them here. We'll talk about that in the lecture of epistemology. But this here is just, we have three sources. We take revelation, we have reasoning, and we have the senses that we use. And all three are how we understand, is where we bring our knowledge from. It's how we know what we know is real. It's how we decide that what we know is what we know. Right? And you need all three. And if you don't have all three, or one of them is telling you the opposite of what the other two are saying, then that's where you hit the brakes. Right? Whenever shara and aql don't get along, you have to hit the brakes and then go back and say, okay, one of these, someone's wrong here. Either that's not what the shara says, or the aql is completely off, meaning the reasoning here is completely off. We're missing something big here. And then you bring the senses in. Well, what is the experience? That's where in usul al-fiqh you bring urf, you bring aada, you bring istihsan, you bring all these other tools. What is the norm? What if people agreed or feel to be the truth here? How have people kind of responded to this? Oh, that's how they responded. You put them all together. That's what the scholars of the deen do. They sit there, so they figure out, okay, the shara seems to say this. This is what seems to make sense. Here's how people experience it. Are they all the same? Then no question. You go, full steam straight ahead. There's some difference. You have to step back and think. And that's where a lot of difference of opinion comes from. Classical scholars generally held that relation and reason ultimately harmonized because originate from the same creator. And that's our statement as Muslims. That shara and aql will never, if used appropriately, understood appropriately, will never go against each other. Revelation and science will never collide if they are both truthful at the same time, talking about the same topic, because they originate from the same source. The universe came from Allah, and the teachings from the Quran came from Allah, so they can't contradict. If they are, then someone's doing something wrong. So we go back to figure out what the wrong thing is. This is very important because that's how we figure out knowledge, and that's how we figure out the authority of rules and laws in our deen. And most people got this question, you're reasonably correct, to a certain degree. What values does Islam prioritize? Again, we're just going through the questions that we asked yesterday. So the core ethical values include three things. And most people got this, and barakallah fikum, that means you listened to my halaqat. And those who didn't, shame on you for not following me on the Fajr series and listening to what I had to say. Those who put just random akhlaq, all you had to do was go to the first lecture on after Fajr, and I said this word for word. There are three core ethics in Islam: righteousness, adl, and istiqamah, or moral absolutism. These are the ethics that everything that happens in this world are going to be held to. Every core value that you have, every moral is going to be held to one of these three, if not all three. And if it doesn't suit it, then it has to be changed. So loyalty has to be held to haqq. Loyalty is a beautiful value. You have to be loyal as a Muslim. But if your loyalty means you're going to lie, or you're going to misrepresent the truth, or you're going to falsify evidence, or you're going to then you drop loyalty. The Quran teaches this. وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. You have to, there's nothing that's, Bir al-Walidain is only second to Tawheed. Right? That is like, that's a big deal. And Bir al-Walidain can brag as much as it wants because it's only second to La ilaha illallah. Everything else falls under it. But if Bir al-Walidain goes against haqq, then you drop it. You drop it, you don't listen, you don't follow. Right? And that's the ranking, and that's our ranking. Very important. Very, very important. In addition, there's mercy, there's truthfulness, there's humility. All of these are just generated by haqq, by the way. All of these are just they're just concepts that are generated by righteousness at the end. That's all they are. Human rahmah is just human rights, which is coming from righteousness itself. Sidq is just saying the truth, which is what truthfulness and righteousness is to begin with. All of these are generated from the same source. Islamic ethics emphasize the balance. It emphasizes wasatiyah. Often pairs virtues together, such as gratitude with perseverance, for example, like I did in the series, and strength with restraint, and puts these things together to teach you that you will be strong, but you have to be halim. You have to also be very patient and forbearing. You're going to be thankful, but you also have to have perseverance for when things go bad. Right? You have to have that balance, that wasatiyah, that moderation and everything. But these are the core values that we carry as Muslims. This is very important. Again, this is very important to who we are. It defines us in so many ways. And not only does it define us, it defines those who don't follow them. Like if you don't follow them, then you've deviated from Islam on an essential level. Like on an essential level. If haqq to you is not the most important thing, if istiqamah, lack of corruption, incorruptibility is not the most important thing to you, then everything that you've done afterwards cannot be, like it can't be judged properly. And you can't claim it belongs to Islam because the basic coding was wrong. Like there was something wrong in that, and that's going to lead to a problem for sure. For sure, it's going to deviate you. For sure. If the ends justify the means, khalas. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do. Like there's no hope in what you do, and you're not aligned with the teachings of Islam. You're not aligned with what Allah Subhanahu wa Taala sent in terms of guidance, and you are going to make colossal mistakes, and you're going to fall into batil really quickly. Right? Because there are basics that you're missing here. And that's why this is so important. Number 6, how does Islam believe, why did I enumerate them at the beginning? Oh, sorry, that's an oversight from me. How does Islam believe change occurs? We talked about mechanisms of change, right? And it was interesting to read some of this stuff. Some of you I need to have a sit down with. I have to figure out who answers some of these questions and call you in for a nice chit chat. This answers the question mainly. You know the pyramid? So where do you start? Where do you begin? At the top? Top going down, ascending, or descending? What is it? Is it going? It's going to be, or is it not horizontal at all? Or sorry, is it not vertical at all? Is it fully horizontal? What is it? So this is where a lot of the fundamentalism and a lot of extremism comes from. Those who believe that Islam is going to be spread by getting the pyramid from the top and then enforcing Islamic rule upon people fundamentally disagree. Like fundamentally disagree. As in, no, we're not aligned, and I have to make it very clear that we're not aligned. This is ISIS. This is how they believe things. This is how they see. They see it, that's how it's going to happen. This is easy. It's an easy answer because what did the Prophet ﷺ do? Very simple. What did he do? Individual by individual. Person by person. Person by person until you make a society. In a society with society until you make a group of people that decide that they want to hold themselves to a moral code, and they'll figure out what system of governance will suit them. They'll figure out what system of governance will suit them. Governance in Islam is the result, is a consequence of the individuals all agreeing on something. The fact that you were able to spread the idea very powerfully to the point where it became the idea that people want, then people will figure out how to enforce that idea upon themselves. We have laws in this country. Why do we have laws? Because collectively we agreed we're going to stop when it's red and we're going to move when it's green. We all agreed so that we can live appropriately, we can get along. But we had to agree we had to come together. There had to be representatives from the people to come together to figure out what laws were going to govern them. The moment you look at it the other way around, it's a big problem. It's a big problem. The individual is achieving inner reform. That's how change occurs in Islam. Because that's the goal at the end. It's you. It's you changing. And then you, and then you, and then you. One by one. If we have to do it one by one, then by God, we do it one by one. But you don't really have to do it one by one. Because if once you change, now I'm not alone anymore. Right? Think about Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. So he had this. So he came and he changed one person. He got inner reform in this one person. This individual now figured it out. He was able to achieve the mechanism of change by talking to that person. This person is now ready. Now he's not alone anymore. Right? Now there's two people doing it. So each talk to two people. Now you have four. Right? But now but it's not just the four. It's the four plus the two plus the one. Each of them are going to do another few, and then it logarithmically just turns into something. That's why when you look at the Islamic population historically, you find it for the first, what am I going to say here, 18 years, grumbling along, just absolutely grumbling along, sometimes even dipping a little bit, kind of going down, meaning the people were dying quicker than we were able to perform da'wah for a while. And then at one point it just skyrockets. It's Hudaybiyah, obviously, but what? Because now you had way more people. So the impact was much stronger. Because when you have a couple of thousand people who believe in something, practice it, preach it, then the impact becomes much more powerful. You're not doing one person by one person anymore. You're doing hundreds by hundreds. By the time the Prophet ﷺ was passing away, he was sitting accepting wufud, accepting groups of people in the thousands coming, all of them. This is the wording of Imam Ahmad in his Musnad, بِسَنَدٍ صَحِيحٍ. All right, so you don't call me things like that. This is what it says. قال فأتينا مع وفد عبد القيس قال فنزلنا على رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام نقبل يديه ورجليه. That when we came to him, we were kissing his hands and his feet, alayhi salatu wasalam. The change of him standing in Mecca, calling this person here, calling that person here, having Ali ibn Abi Talib literally working as espionage, scouting out if someone wanted to know Islam, and then 3 days later, before he actually brought him to Dar al-Arqam to learn something like the story of Abu Dhar, it was one person it took a long time, but then but that's how it works. When you come and you bring a different methodology, when you say that a mechanism is not that, we have to get to governance. We have to get an army. We have to get a government. And then we have to establish this hukm amongst people. The problem now is fundamental. The problem now is in understanding the ideology of Islam. It's not a fiqhi difference anymore. This is ideological. No, Islam does not force people. La ikrah, we don't force people. When you force people into Islam, you just create more munafiqeen. We have enough of them. We don't need more munafiqeen, honestly. It's leave the kuffar, it's easier that way. Let them so that we can figure out who's actually bought in and who isn't, so that we can do something with the people that we have. So the idea of forcing people, the idea that governance is going to implement, yes, in Allah yuqimu bis-sultan ma yuqim bil-Quran. Yeah, but that's not in terms of forcing people. That's in terms of people agreeing. When they agree, they come up with a system of governance. And when they come up with a system of governance, that can do more for them than just individualistic work. Because now it's an organized effort that they have put together to help everyone follow. That's why it's easier. We can all agree that we have to drive properly. But if we don't come together and agree and have a system and put a group of us that will decide what the law is and hold us to it, we're not going to do it well. You know how I know? Because I grew up in the Middle East. How many people have drove a car here in the Middle East? Put your hand up if you have. Very few people. How many laws are there in the Middle East in terms of, there's nothing. They're just suggestions. They're just, like the red light is not really a red light. It's like, do you want to stop? Maybe think about, no problem. But I spent most of my life sitting on the left side of, so they're the same cars. So you're sitting here, driving, and then people are here. Now between the guy who is driving and the door is just, what is there? When you're sitting, what's between you and the door? Just the door. There was me. I was between the guy and the door. That's where I sat. I sat beside him there. That's how I got places. That's how I went places. I was much skinnier than I am today, so I just sit, and that's how I got places. And he was driving on the opposite side of the road most of the time, and it was not a problem. I was drinking tea or chatting with the people. Most people died on the road anyways, so it wasn't a big deal. So if there's no governance, then that's what he meant, alayhi sallam, here. And that's what he meant by bay'ah as well. Like when we use these terms, you have to understand what the terms are meant. They're political terms and they're based on a certain understanding. You can't just use these terms and imagine some, no, we're not trying to get governments, we're not trying to overthrow governments and bring in armies and then force people to do things. Not what we're doing. We don't need to do that, actually. That's much more difficult. It's much easier, actually, to spread da'wah. Spread da'wah, just keep it, just stick to it. It's hard, it's tiring. You may not see the impacts in your lifetime. You may pass away before it happens, but keep on doing it. Change the ideas, individuals achieving inner reform over time. You will arrive at a point where there's a force of 1 billion people who believe one thing. And they will figure out how to organize. And they will figure out a way to govern themselves. And they will figure out a way to make sure that their voice reaches people. Today, you can say, well, there's 2 billion Muslims. Yeah, who have, but yeah, no, not really. No, that's just a number on paper. That's just what's on the ID card or in the passport. Not really. I grew up in Sham. You know what Sham? It's where, Sham and Umayyin. This is as far as Islam can go back, historically. I lived in a village where all of them Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. There's like 3,000 people in the village. Maybe 400 pray. Maybe. That's if I'm being generous. Maybe. We had maybe 1,000 kids in the, maybe 200 in the masjid come for. No. Wallah, I used to pray janazah. I remember this as I can see. Pray janazah, 4 lines. 5 times more people outside waiting for the janazah because they don't pray. They don't pray. This is 40 minutes from Dimashq. This is 40 minutes. It's not somewhere, this is 40 minutes from Dimashq. It's between Dimashq and Al-Quds. That's where we live. You go up to the top of the mountain, you see Palestine and Syria, Lebanon. We're in the, so it's not like this is where Islam reached here a very long time ago. And people lost what Islam was also a long time ago. So no, we are in a position where this is what we believe in. Believe in it. If you're a Muslim, believe in it. Dedicate yourself to it. Don't worry about the outcomes. Khair will come. You just have to, because that's what your ideology is. Not because this is what I want. It's what he did, alayhi salatu wasalam. It's what he did. And it's what the Quran teaches and what our deen is based on. Number 7, what is the ideal outcome envisioned? I love this question. This is a great question. This is an awesome question. It's the funnest question of all. What do we want? Okay, so we got everyone Muslim. Now what? So everyone's Muslim now. What are we going to achieve? What's the goal here? What's the utopia that we all want? So it's on 2 levels. When it comes to individuals, it's hayatan tayyib. It's a wholesome life. It's living well. It's living well. As an individual, it's living well. Living well even whether you're poor or wealthy, whether you're sick or healthy, whether you are popular or unknown, whether you're strong or weak, male or female, young or old. It doesn't matter. You live a wholesome life regardless of what hand you were dealt in life. Whether you live in a first world country or in the middle of nowhere. You live well. You have a wholesome life, a hayatan tayyiba, because you've embraced this moral code and this spirituality that allows you to do that. That's the goal here, is that you as a person are satisfied with life even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. It's easy for people to be happy when everything is available to them. When they have a lot of wealth and they're living freely. Of course, it's easy for most people to be satisfied. But even then, we live in a first world country. People are never satisfied. Wallahi, never satisfied. Now I understand. But even before COVID, ya akhi, even before COVID, no one was satisfied. Everyone was complaining about everything. And we have a term for it. It's first world problems. And they're embarrassing when you're sitting with someone who just crawled out of the gutter somewhere in the middle of the Middle East. They're like, what are you complaining about? But that's how it is. Why? Because there's no wholesomeness. There's no hayatun tayyib. And then on the society level, it's marked by a morally cultivated rather than merely regulated society. So instead of having societies that are just regulated by external laws, it's a morally cultivated society. Meaning people follow the law because they believe in it, because it's morally correct, because they know that this is the right thing to do. The raqaba exists on the inside before it exists on the outside. And this society preserves human dignity across all social ranks, whatever it is that we're talking about. In social ranks as in relationships or wealth distribution or human rights or political governance, whatever it is, all social ranks, that we preserve human dignity. This is what we're looking for. I'm going to detail all of this stuff. All of this stuff we'll talk about inshallah ta'ala, because it's important to this series. But I'm giving you the simple answers that maybe you can, if you want to think about when you're asked, what does Islam stand for? This is what we want: a wholesome life for the individual, where he is aligned physically, spiritually, socially, on every, this person finds satisfaction and clarity and purpose in their life. Hayatan tayyiba. In society, we want a morally regulated, cultivated society that's not merely just regulated from above, but rather from the inside, achieving an outcome of preserving human dignity in every way possible, making sure that we preserve your life, hayatak, wa aqlak, wa deenak, wa irdak, wa malak. We preserve all of it for you. Because if we don't preserve that for you, may it be a lot or may it be a little, then there's no hope. Societies can't function. Because they did a certain amount of that here, these societies flourish more. Not for long, because a lot of that's being lost. Like a lot of that is going away slowly. Slowly it's being pulled out, all of these things. But before that, the reason that these societies flourished and they were meaningful and people came here is because there are certain things that were, you had more hope of achieving hayatan tayyiba here than you had anywhere else. Right? Societies here had some moral cultivation. People stood in line without being forced to. Ever tried to buy khubz in the Middle East somewhere? Right? Even though there's only 5 people, but they're all standing, shoving and screaming with the, even though they could have just, it's a lack of moral cultivation. There's no, if there's a policeman there, they'll stand. That's regulatory, right? So what we're trying to achieve is a morally cultivated society. That preserves human dignity. And once you have that, you have our utopia. Human life ultimately culminates in the accountability before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the afterlife. Number 8, what tensions or debates exist within Islamic thought? Again, these are my answers, but I asked my close friend ChatGPT to help me write them properly. So if it doesn't sound like me, it's because there's the touch of genius here. So what tensions or debates exist within Islamic thought? I use this term here because I know that the word blind spots is not appropriate to use when we're talking about Islam because we don't see it to have blind spots, right? But we do see the possibility of blind spots of the practitioners, and we are able to see internal tensions in Islam. Like where would the tensions come from? And this is a topic I'm going to talk about in the last lecture. The last lecture is going to be on political governance. I'm going to lessen the talk on that a little bit and just focus on this question because I think it's important for everyone to have the answers for and clarity. Where did the intentions come from? And here's my answer. It's interpretation of revelation causing destructive factionalism. So when you interpret faith or interpret moral, holy scripture or religious text, and you interpret it in a way that causes destructive factionalism, where we're fractionated and is destructive. We can't work together anymore. That is the internal tension. There are many internal tensions that exist in our deen, and we'll talk about them, inshallah. There's like 6 or 7 that are worth sharing with, because you need to know them as a Muslim growing up in the West and growing up even elsewhere. You have to know what they are so that you know how to avoid them. So you know how to make sure that they don't occur during your life and that you're not a force that increases them. However, this is the major one, because we have religious text that is designed to address people till the end of time, that gives laws and rules that are open to interpretation of the human mind. We're going to have different interpretations. It's normal. Islam is designed that way. This is not a fault in Islam. Meaning, if you talk to a non-Muslim who's studying Islam, they'll say that this is the blind spot of Islam. This is the problem with it. My response is that's actually how Islam is designed. It is designed that way. It's supposed to have that. It's supposed to have interpretation of text that will differ amongst scholars. And that is by design to achieve taysir amongst people. So that there's more than one way of doing the right thing. So it's easier for people to follow. It's when you use that to cause destructive factionalism. When the fractionalism that occurs, or the factionalism that occurs, becomes destructive. Meaning we can't collaborate, we can't cooperate. You are on one side, I'm on the other, we don't talk to one another. Because we don't agree on the basics anymore. When we do, but we just interpreted text differently. Text that was designed to be interpreted differently to begin with. So this tension piece is actually something that Muslims have to understand a little bit more deeply so that they're not confused by it. And I explained, I put a few stuff up there that you can read, inshallah, on your own time, because we're running out of time. Number 9, what historical context shaped Islam? Well, 7th century Arabia. Everyone got this one right, because everyone knows. Alhamdulillah, no one said anything different. He thought that Islam started somewhere else. It's 7th century Arabia, within a tribal and religiously diverse environment. It was very diverse, more diverse than most people understand. Most people think that Arabia was a homogeneous area. It was not. It was not at all. And if you study Medina, just the Yathrib, you'll see how diverse it was and how people came from many different walks of life, had a lot of different ideologies that they belonged to. That they belonged to their own adyan and their own ways of thinking about things. And its goal at the end is to reach all humanity and all jinn, but it started there. Understanding that context is central to how we interpret our deen and contemplate about it, because it spoke to people with a very specific context. The goal of it, speaking to those people, was for it to be extrapolated to all people everywhere until the end of time. But that extrapolation requires from you a very deep and profound understanding of that context. So for me, when someone talks about the deen, and they don't speak Arabic appropriately, and forgive me, this is no offense to anyone who doesn't speak Arabic at all, but if you don't understand Arabic appropriately, and you don't understand Arabic poetry, and you don't understand Arabic tribalism, you don't understand, then for me, I know that how are you, if you don't understand the context of when this was revealed, then how are you extrapolating? If you don't properly comprehend the context of when this was all brought to people, then how are you extrapolating and discussing and talking about the changes of law? You have to. That's why ulum al-ala in Islam is so important. The first thing we were taught is you're taught nahw and sarf. You're taught nahw and sarf so many times until you want to barf. You have so many time and time again. It's so tiring. And then you have to study historic. I never understood why. Allah yajzihum al-khair, wallahi. Because I was such a it was not a good. I was always upset. Like, why are we studying these mu'allaqat? Why do I have to read Sharh al-Zawzani, Sharh al-Tabrizi? And why do I care about any of this stuff? It's all so old. Why do I have to memorize this stuff? I tried to forget all of these things over time. I don't care about this stuff. But without it, I would not be sitting here at all. Absolutely not. I knew nothing. I should have shut my mouth and listened, because it's only through understanding the context of those years was I able to actually comprehend what the Quran was saying to begin with. It's because I understood the mentality that existed then. So I understood what was being said to them. So the extrapolation made sense. I could make sense of it. Or else you run into the historic fallacy and a lot of other logical fallacies that will cause you not to appreciate what Islam is doing. If you read some of the things that Islam talks about regarding human rights and marriage, and you're like, well, these are normal. Why are you so impressed? Yeah, it's normal for you. You're living in a first world country in 2026. Of course it's normal. Go back to the context of 7th century Arabia. Go back to that time of the world where people were being. If you understand what was happening then Islam becomes very different. It's very revolutionary, and it's very reformative too. Islam came and brought reform like nothing else before it. It came and broke every social norm. It was so hard for Quraysh. I feel bad for them, wallahi. They had no chance. Like, they had no chance. What he brought, alayhi sallam, was so powerful. It was so transformative. The words were so profound. They were beautiful even to listen to. I think that was bothered them the most. It's enough that what you're saying is absolutely challenging every status quo, and it's right. Does it also have to sound so musical? Can it not? Can it be boring like every other philosophical text in the world? Can it be something that only the academics listen to so that the rest of the masses just follow us? No, it had to sound amazing. That people would walk around saying it to themselves. Non-Muslims were singing it out because it sounds so good. يا أيها المدثر قم فأنذر وربك فكبر وثيابك. It sounds like rap. I don't know how to rap, but it sounds like it. People kept on using it, even though it's not poetry. Poetry is very rigid. Arabic poetry, absolute nightmare to learn, because it's so rigid. Every law there's no playing around with it. In the Quran, Simon said, poetry, rigid laws. Here, go ahead. Listen to this. Listen to this. It follows no law at all. It follows no artistic law that the Arabs understand, and yet it completely blew them away. It completely blew them away. They couldn't hold a candle to it. All of their attempts to the Prophet ﷺ were negotiative, or discriminatory, or oppressive. Either try to kill him, kick him out, compromise, get him to compromise and change, or try to control him. That's it. There was because the ideas that he brought in every social rank, they had no response. And you can see it when you study the seerah. You feel how weak they are. Wallahi, you feel how weak they were. Not the Prophet ﷺ, with the 50 followers, with the 50 individuals on planet Earth. with 50 individuals, no money and no government and no protection and no training and no arsenal and no nothing. He had nothing. And yet they were the weaker ones because they couldn't. Why? Because that's the beauty of ideologies. Ideologies are the most powerful thing in the world. They are what dictate what happens. What you're seeing happening in the Middle East today and what Trump is doing, and these are ideologies. These are very clear ideologies. Those who have studied what Zionism is know what the ideology means, understands where it comes from, understands what we know what problem they think exists. We know what picture of reality they assume. We know how they view human morality. We know how they see human nature. We know all of this. Did we miss that piece? I feel like I missed that question. Yes, we did. Yeah. So I have to go back to this one because I forgot it. What theory of human nature does Islam carry? I felt there was something missing. Humans are morally capable beings. That's how Islam sees us. We have nobility, but we also have corruption inside of us. We have both. We have potential of both. هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. He can go either. He can choose whatever he wants. هَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. He has both. He can do, but he's morally capable. He's able to have. See, animals don't have that. Animals don't really have a moral compass. They're not morally capable, right? You can sometimes be very impressed by how a mother animal will treat its younglings, or how a father animal will protect his youngs. But if that father animal later on assumes a pride that has other youngsters that aren't his, he will kill them all. He will murder them brutally, all of them. Ever seen a lion take over a pride? They don't put that part on BBC Earth. Because if you see that part, you're like, I don't think I want to save this anymore. And when you see that piece, you're like, I don't know. Yeah, because they're majestic animals. But watch, if the father lion loses the battle and the other lion now owns the pride, what happens to all the youngsters? Why? Because they're not morally. Do you think lions are evil? Yeah, are lions evil? You can't use that term because they're not morally capable. In order for you to be evil, you have to be morally capable to begin with. And that's how Allah sees human beings. We're morally capable beings. We have both. We can be noble, we can corrupt. The potential is there. We possess aql, we possess free will, we have emotions, we have a natural moral compass, a fitrah inside of us. And through discipline and knowledge and ethical growth, we are able to improve and go in one direction. But that's how human beings are seen. We're not seen as robots that have no free will. We're not seen as completely autonomous to do whatever we want. We're seen as morally capable creatures. SubhanAllah, I don't know how I missed that. So those are the questions. Those are the 9 questions. And those are the answers that I offer. Again, they're not my own. These are the مَا أَجْمَعَ عَلَيْهِ الْعُلَمَاء قَدِيمًا. Dropping off all of the details where they differed on stuff. This is just the stuff that they agree to. They all agree to this. And really what they agree to is a skeleton of our ideology that we should all stand by. So we don't have time to actually go through the second question, but I'm going to present it to you and then leave you to read it, inshallah, through the slides on your own, because I have to go through this series. There's only enough days to get through everything. So the traditional questions that Muslim scholars asked were these 4. This is what they asked. This is what they used in their kalam arguments. This is what when they sat in front of the Christians, or they sat in front of the Confucius, or they sat in front of the people of Persia, the Majus. This is how their scholars, this is what they talked about. They didn't argue details of fiqh, and they didn't talk about tertiary aspects of aqeedah, the stuff that we love to argue about. They didn't talk about that at all. It wasn't absolutely not important to them. What was important to them were how to answer these 4 questions. For us, the pillars of Islamic thought, you have to know, what is your answer? Who is the creator? What is a human being? What is the purpose of existence? And what are Islam's goals with existence? What's the purpose of existence? And what is Islam's goals with it? Now, if you think about it, that's kind of all the questions we just talked about, right? When you talk about what form of reality it assumes and what problem is, that's who the creator is. What is a human being? That talks about not just human nature, but also what the moral and ethical values are, right? And then what is the purpose of existence? That's the rest of the questions that we went through, basically, what we're trying to, and then the mechanism of behavior, what the utopia looks like, what Islam's goals with it. That's where we get to answer that piece and explain what did the Prophet ﷺ envision? Did he envision something? He did. All of that will exist within all of it's there. So basically these 4 questions kind of summarize the 9 that we already went through. Maybe a few are missing, but to me it's quite mature. from a philosophical perspective, for them to come up with these questions before the framework of a million ideologies were put together and studied and analyzed, and then deducted here's what they have in common. Before that, they were able to come up with this stuff. So I invite you to read these slides. I will come back to them at the end, inshallah. I'll make sure that at the end I leave 10, 15 minutes, and we go through them one by one so that I can discuss them with you. But think about them because they're important. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the theory of knowledge. We'll talk about the epistemology of Islam. It's an important piece. A lot of what occurs today in disagreements in the world and a lot of the problems within Islam, it originates from lack of understanding of this piece. And if I have time tomorrow, I'll try and cover some of the things that I wasn't able to talk about today. I hope you found that beneficial and helpful. Subhanallah bihamdik. Shadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka wa azzama ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Please, if you have questions, hold on to them. I will make sure at the end of the 7-day series that there's time at the end for a Q&A. Like I'll put up a QR code, and I'll also allow for comments and questions at the end of the series, inshallah ta'ala. But allow me to at least complete the material that I want to offer before you ask me 50 questions about something that I'm going to talk about tomorrow or the day after, and I'll make sure I answer your questions at the end, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.